In our last Secretariat video, we have seen how Secretariat had won both the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes, both in record time. He was now headed for Belmont Park in New York for the final leg of the Triple Crown. New York was where the Wood Memorial had been run, and when Secretariat had left, he had been slightly discredited, was a dethroned champion, and about one race away from retirement. He was now coming back, a winner and a Triple Crown hopeful. Hello, I'm Charles.
And I'm James.
We love history, and we want to share our love of history with you.
So, as you heard in that intro, we are continuing with our story on Secretariat, and as usual, we are joined by our sister, the Horse Nut.
And also our in-house historian on music.
And a little bit on horses.
It had been 25 years since Citation had won the Triple Crown in 1948. Since then, 7 horses came to the Belmont, having won both the Derby and the Preakness, but lost the Belmont. 8 additional horses had won some combination of 2 of the races, but didn't win all 3. If you remember from our first Secretariat video, Riva Ridge won the Derby and the Belmont, but not the Preakness. In a time when things were crazy in the United States, Watergate, the Vietnam War, etc., the 3-year-old colt was a very unifying figure in America at the time, as everyone was hoping for a Triple Crown winner. Secretariat made the cover of Time magazine, Newsweek, and Sports Illustrated. Secretariat's stable was constantly being visited by reporters, photographers, racing officials, and of course, the curious public.
Lucian hardly let up training Secretariat the weeks before the Belmont. He kept asking for more from the colt. Besides his workout, he was being galloped 2 miles every morning. This was to help prepare him from the grueling 1.5-mile race. One day, Lucian asked Turcotte to run the colt a mile in 1 minute 36 seconds. Secretariat came back having run it in 1 minute 34 seconds and 4/5. This was faster than Lucian wanted, but Secretariat seemed to do it easily. Secretariat continued to put in blazing workouts. The pressure continued to heighten. So many colts had come to the Belmont with what seemed like unbeatable chances, but still had failed.
Pancho still believed he had the better horse. He didn't believe Secretariat had beaten Sham fair and square. He discounted talk that Sham appeared tired and washed out after the Preakness. The morning of the Belmont, Secretariat was sharper than he had ever been. He was bucking, rearing, and playing the whole time he was out of his stall. Lucian stated that this was good and that he was ready to run. That day, 67,605 people came to Belmont Park to see the races. The races were scheduled to begin at 1:30 p.m. The Belmont's post time was 5:40. It was a hot and muggy day. Secretariat was quiet in the walking ring before the race. Lucian told Turcotte in the ring, if he wants to run early, let him, but don't send him. Don't choke him either.
As the horses headed for the tunnel to the track, Secretariat appeared cool and dry, while Sham was wringing wet with perspiration. When on the track, Secretariat appeared dull to Turcotte. He tried to wake Secretariat up. None of the other jockeys were moving quickly, probably trying not to overheat their horses. Turcotte decided to set the pace for the warm-up since no one else would. He galloped Secretariat to warm him up before going to the starting gate. Only 5 colts went to the post that day for the 105th running of the Belmont Stakes. Secretariat was the first to be loaded. Then Private Smiles, My Gallant, Twice a Prince, and finally, Sham. Secretariat anticipated the start and crouched, lowering himself back on his hind legs. It was 5:38. There they go. Watch Secretariat. He's on the inside.
Furthest from you.
He's already heading towards the front. Sham is on the outside, so the furthest away from the rail.
And now it's Sham. Sham and Secretariat are right together into the first turn. My Gallant has third behind them. Then it's Twice a Prince, and the trailer is Private Smiles as they go by the turn. Those two together,
They're just
Sham on the outside.
dueling out
Sham
there. It's a
getting
match
ahead in
race.
front as they
Yes.
move around the turn with
Which is what everyone
Secretariat
figured
second.
this was going to
Then
be.
there's a large gap. Make it 8 lengths back to My
Although not
Gallant
like
in third
this.
and Twice a Prince fourth, and Private Smiles is still a trailer. They're on the backstretch. It's
Look,
almost
now
a match
Secretariat's
race.
starting
Now,
to get
Secretariat's
ahead.
on the inside, by ahead. Sham is on the outside. They've opened 10 lengths on My Gallant, who is third by ahead, with Twice a Prince fourth. Then it's another 8
just
lengths
amazing
back
to watch
Private
this race.
Smiles, who is trailing the field. They continue down the backstretch, and that Secretariat now taking the lead. He's got it by about a length and a half. Still Sham, 10 lengths
how
back.
Sham is
My
just starting
Gallant,
to drop
Twice a
back.
Prince. They're moving on the turn
Listen to the
now.
crowd.
For the turn at Secretariat, it looks like he's opening. The lead is increasing. Make it 3.5. He's moving into the turn. Secretariat.
I like what the
holding on to
announcer
a
says here in a
large
bit.
lead. Sham is second, and then it's a long way back to My Gallant and Twice a Prince. They're on the turn. And Secretariat is blazing along. The first 3/4 of a mile in 1:09 and 4/5. Secretariat is widening now. He is moving like a tremendous machine.
That quote right
Secretariat
there.
by 12.
He's moving like a tremendous machine. Look at the distance between him and Sham. And look, you can see the other horses catching up to Sham.
Today, as My Gallant and Twice a Prince are both coming up to him now. But Secretariat is all alone. He's out there almost a 16th of a mile away from the rest of the horses. Secretariat is in a position that seems impossible to catch. He's into the stretch. Secretariat leads his field by 18 lengths. And now Twice a Prince has taken second, and My Gallant has moved back to third.
Just listen to that crowd go. They're watching history being made.
18-length lead. He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. Here comes Secretariat to the wire. An unbelievable, an amazing performance. He hits the finish 25 lengths in front.
Now the announcer says 25 lengths, but afterwards they figured it out that it was actually 31 lengths. And there's Penny Chenery after the race.
Unbelievable performance by this miracle horse. And look at Mrs. Tweedy. She's having the time of her life.
During the race, everyone thought that Secretariat and Sham were going too fast. They were racing at sprinting speeds, not long distance speeds. They were racing as if it was the end of the race, not the beginning. Turcotte had no idea how fast Secretariat was running. He thought he was doing 12 seconds to the 1/8 mile like Riva Ridge did the previous year. Secretariat was moving effortlessly. There was no straining to run at that speed. When Turcotte looked over at Sham, Sham appeared to be under strain. And he was right. Twice a Prince's jockey, looking ahead at the dueling colts in front of him, and thought he might have a chance for the second place money. Forget about first place. The 6th furlong, or the 6th 1/8 mile, was where Sham was finished. He couldn't take the grueling, suicidal pace being set by Secretariat. Secretariat's 3/4 mile time was 1 minute, 9 seconds, and 4/5, which was the fastest 6 furlongs ever in Belmont history. The previous record being 1 minute, 11 seconds. Racing official Pat O'Brien thought back to 1957 when Bold Ruler had run this race almost as fast, 1/2 mile in 46 seconds and 4/5, and 3/4 miles in 1 minute 10 and 2/5, and how he slowed almost to a walk and finished third. Some were sure the Secretariat would win Others were afraid of the blazing pace. Turcotte was still unaware of his speed. He could hear Sham fading back, and after glancing back, could see the other horses dropping back. He thought he was still doing 12 seconds to the 8th. He hadn't used his whip at all.
In the stands, Penny clenched her hands and Lucian stood quiet. Sham's jockey, Pinkay, could feel his colt was in distress and didn't push the colt, letting the other 3 colts overtake him. Secretariat continued to widen his lead, never backing off, never slowing. At 660 yards left, he was running faster than he was at the half-mile pole. He tied the world record time for 9 furlongs. His 10-furlong time beat the Belmont's record by a full second. Count Fleet held the record for the longest margin of victory at 25 lengths. Secretariat reached 25 lengths in front and didn't stop, didn't slow. He ran the 1 3/8 miles in 2 minutes, 11 seconds, and 1/5, which was 3 seconds faster than Man O' War's world record that was set 53 years earlier. He then broke Count Fleet's record and continued to increase his lead.
The crowd was applauding, which was not a normal occurrence during the race, and cheering knowing they were not only witnessing the 9th Triple Crown winner, but witnessing one of the greatest performances in horse racing history. Secretariat still showed no signs of stress. Turcotte finally realized what was happening when he glanced at the infield teletimer and sees his 3.5 mile time. It didn't register right away, and he had to look a second time. He then noticed the current time of 2:19. He realized he might have a chance to break the record for the Belmont and take the record for all 3 races. With 75 yards left, he urged Secretariat to keep going. Sham faded to last place, but Secretariat continued to widen his lead. All eyes were on Secretariat and the clock. Many horsemen had seen Turcotte looking at the timer and knew he was now racing the clock and winning. Secretariat passed under the wire 31 lengths ahead of Twice a Prince with a time of 2:24, which was 2 3/5 seconds faster than the track record. Even as Secretariat was slowed by Turcotte over the next half mile, Secretariat broke another world record by running an 1/8 mile in an unofficial 2:27 3/5, thus beating Swamp's record for 1 5/8 miles by 3.5 seconds. This 1/8 was in 13 3/5 seconds. After his amazing victory, as much as $500,000 was offered to those in possession of a breeding share. Many offers were made to have Secretariat appear all over the U.S. Racetracks across the country tried their best to bring Secretariat to them.
Secretariat's times for the Belmont were absolutely astonishing. Every 1/8 and every 1/4 mile, every half mile, every mile was just astounding. Here on the screen here are the list of all the speeds he was running throughout the entire race. Pause it if you want to just look at these, how fast this guy was going.
Sham finished in dead last. His jockey Pinkay did not want to push the horse because he knew Sham was exhausted. He could not handle it, and he did not want Sham to be hurt, hoping that he'd race again. Unfortunately, he didn't. Later in training, Sham fractured a leg which had to be surgically repaired. Because of this, he never raced again and went to stud.
Secretariat's story does not end here. He continued to race because he could still race until November. He won his first race after the Belmont in Chicago. He was then shipped to Saratoga, New York. However, he was not himself. His workouts were not what they should have been. Turcotte continued to say that Secretariat wasn't right, but the pressure was on to run in the Whitney Stakes. He ran, but ran dully and was beaten by a length. Secretariat developed a temperature and was in and out of training for weeks. He didn't train well during this time, and his workout times were not good. Secretariat was supposed to run in the Marlboro Cup in mid-September against Riva Ridge, who was training well. The Wednesday before the race, Secretariat gave a good workout with one of the fastest workouts in New York that year. In order to get him ready, Lucian had to train him extra hard in the last couple of weeks, which would have ruined any other horse.
Turcotte had the choice of riding Riva Ridge or Secretariat, and he chose Secretariat, which Penny thought was the wrong choice. However, the old Secretariat was back. Secretariat broke another record that day by racing 1 mile and an eighth in 1 minute 45 and 2/5 of a second, which was 4/5 of a second faster than the record. His next race, the Woodward, he lost. It was a sloppy track and he hadn't been training serious for the race. He didn't have his typically zinger workout before the race, and tired before the end of the race. However, this was the last race he would lose in his racing career. Lucian returned to the normal training procedures for the Man o' War Stakes, which was on turf instead of dirt. What is the difference between turf and dirt?
Okay, a dirt track is just what it sounds like. It's dirt. A turf track is a race run on grass. Good?
Okay. Secretariat got his zinger workout the Friday before the Monday race and gave one of the fastest workouts ever on a turf track. And here are the stats for it. Secretariat was ready once again to race. He would be racing 1.5 miles on grass against the best turf horse in the nation, Tentum. Secretariat made it look easy and toy with Tentum when he started to move on Secretariat. Secretariat ran the mile in 1 minute 36 and 1.25 miles in 2 minutes flat, and finished by breaking the track record. Again!
Secretariat's final race was in Canada in the Canadian International, which would be the longest race he'd ever run at 1 mile and 5/8. In his workout 3 days before the race, Secretariat ran 5/8 of a mile in 57 seconds and 3/5. The Canadian clockers were astonished as they had never seen such a fast run at the Woodbine track. 18 days before the syndication contract required Secretariat's retirement and his return to Claiborne Farms, he raced in this race. Eddie Maple rode Secretariat that day as Turcotte had been suspended for careless riding in an unrelated race. Secretariat had little trouble and won by almost 7 lengths. Secretariat left the racetrack with 21 career starts. In one of these races, he placed 4th. This was his first race. He placed 3rd once. He came in 2nd 3 times, one of which was the disqualification race where he was disqualified to 2nd, if you remember from our first video. And he finished his career with 16 first-place starts. He was the 4th leading money-winning thoroughbred of all time, despite his short racing career. He won $1,316,808. He left the track with many rating him a better horse than the great Man o' War. He was called the greatest horse anyone has ever seen, the fastest horse ever seen, and the horse of the century.
Secretariat had more than proved himself on the track, but he now had to prove himself as a stud. The first official crop of foals were born in 1975. One yearling broke the $1 million barrier at the Keeneland July sale, but was a complete failure in racing. Secretariat did sire several major stakes winners, but none of them rose to the height that Secretariat himself had. He sired 663 foals, including 341 winners, or 51.4%, and 54 stakes winners, or 8.1%. Secretariat has faced criticism as a breeding stallion since he did not produce many offspring that shared his ability, and didn't have any sons that made it to the top sire list. His daughters, on the other hand, did better. Several were excellent racers, and more were excellent broodmares. Through his daughters, Secretariat's bloodline appears in many great horses in racing, including leading sire in North America, AP Indy, Belmont winner Rags to Riches, Kentucky Derby winners Orb and California Chrome, Secretariat's great-great-great-grandson, American Pharoah, won the Triple Crown in 2015. I could tell you where I was at that time. I was out wrapping hay at the time. James, on the other hand, he got to go in and actually watch the race with Andrea. But no, I had to be out there and work, so I missed that one. I also missed Justify's 2018 Triple Crown win.
We missed it too!
Okay, yeah, all three of us missed it. We were on vacation at the time.
In 1989, Secretariat was afflicted with laminitis, which is a painful and debilitating hoof disease. After a month of treatment, he didn't improve, and the decision was made to put him down. He died October 4th, 1989, at the age of 19, and was buried at Claiborne Farm. He had the rare honor of being buried whole, as traditionally only the head, heart, and hooves of a winning racehorse are buried. At the autopsy, an autopsy was performed, and it was discovered that not only was Secretariat's heart perfect and without a problem, but it was huge. While it wasn't weighed, they figured it to be around 22 pounds, the average being 8.5 pounds. Sham, who died in 1993 of a heart attack, also had a large heart. This time it was weighed, and his weighed 18 pounds, and it is based off those measurements that the 22 pounds is estimated.
Secretariat was given some awards and honors, both in his lifetime and after his lifetime. American Champion 2-year-old Colt in 1972. American Horse of the Year, 1972. 9th Triple Crown Champion, 1973. American Champion 3-year-old Male Horse, 1973. American Champion Male Turf Horse, 1973. He only raced on turf, like, twice. 1973 American Horse of the Year, 2 years in a row. 1974 U.S. Racing Hall of Fame. 1992 leading broodmare sire in North America. In 1999, ESPN listed him 35th in a list of 100 of the greatest North American athletes in the 20th century. He's the top of only 3 non-humans on that list. Man o' War was 84th, and Citation was 97th. In 1999, he got his own U.S. postage stamp. In 2005, on ESPN's show Who's Who, when they were talking about the greatest sports performances, he is the only non-human on the list, ranking 2nd. 2007 Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame. This is the first time an animal received this honor. In 2013, he was inducted to the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame. He only raced in Canada once, I believe. And also in 2003, he was the focus of a 60-minute sports segment. In 2016, his Triple Crown victory ranked number 13 in Sports Illustrated list of the 100 greatest moments in sports history. He is in the top 100 U.S. racehorses of the 20th century, second only to Man o' War. In 2010, Penny developed the Secretariat Vox Populi Award. This acknowledges the horse whose popularity and racing excellence best resounded with the American public and gained recognition for thoroughbred racing. Back in 1974, the Secretariat Stakes was created. The Meadows, which is the farm where he was born, is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. According to ESPN, 263 roads in the U.S. are named after him, more than any other athlete. Secretariat Drive is the most common. Somehow that makes sense. Secretariat also has several life-size statues of himself. And of course, there is the Disney movie Secretariat, all about him. You know, he may have had more than just a couple of awards and honors given to him. Can you imagine having been at Belmont Park 50 years ago today?
Yeah, it would have been absolutely amazing.
Traffic would have been horrible.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 70s, so I don't know if... Well, cars would have been a big thing. But anyway.
Although technically it's not... Well, you know, when we're recording, it's not 50 years ago.
What do you mean?
Because this video will be uploaded on the 50-year anniversary. We're not recording it on the 50-year anniversary.
Details.
Anyway, that concludes our series on Secretariat. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not, and hit the bell so that you can be notified whenever we upload. Which is who knows when, considering our schedule.
Yeah, this is not my full-time job yet. And I've got a full-time job plus work part-time on the farm. So my schedule can be busy, but hopefully next month we'll have part 1 of a series on Ernest Shackleton's famous voyage. So until our next adventure, see you later. Turcotte had no idea how fast Secretariat